K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we're expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at advertise@k98talk.org. The leader in talk radio on the Internet, right here on K98 Talk and the Spark Radio Network.
Calls, we got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political courageous will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious.
All right, folks. Well, it's just a couple minutes past the hour here. It's beautiful downtown Oklahoma City. Of course, this is Rick Robinson, host of America Off the Rails. Just want to give a quick shout out to all the affiliates before we get started. We've got High Point Radio out of New Jersey, AMFM247.com, Leading Edge Radio Network, Red State Talk Radio, SHR Media, K98Talk.com, and of course the home network, the Spark Radio Network. Now, here in just a moment, when we come back from the break, we're going to have our resident libertarian riffraff anarchist, Steve Long and Lily Dane. Also, of course, as a usual Monday, Jared will be joining me as well. So this will be a bit of a panel show. Of course, we'll turn everything over to the guests for the most part and let them talk about a few things. But at this point, we are going to have to go ahead and take a really quick break and pay a couple of bills, and then we will be right back here in just a couple minutes. Alright, folks, this is Rick Robinson with you. I want to tell you about some friends of mine from a company called Security Enforcement Specialists. He's been involved in this agency now, and with his other partner, they do have over 30 years of experience in the private security industry. If you own a business and you need someone to keep you or your customers or residents safe, then I highly recommend contacting Security Enforcement Specialists today. Give them a call at 405-703-1796. Again, that's 405-703-1796. Again, tell them Rick from K98 Talk sent you. Like I said, if you need the help, they are here for you, so make sure that you go look them up, check them out, and see what they can do.
The wrong way. Welcome to the place. Welcome to the...
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
We will keep this promise. to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.
Oh, welcome to the face. Welcome to the face of the new democracy. Don't expect us to admit a mistake. We're paying off election debts to those who undertake. Attorney General's lying even while
It's time to hear the truth about America's biggest challenges. You're listening to America Off the Rails with your host, Rick Robinson.
All right, folks, well, welcome back. Of course, this is America Off the Rails, and as I mentioned before we took the break, we are going to be joined today by both Steve Long and Lily Dane, host and co-host of Liberty Unfiltered, again, our resident anarchist riffraff. Also, of course, today, as usual on a Monday, we have Jared with us. Good afternoon, Jared. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Rick?
I'm hanging in there. This weekend has been really, really busy. We are moving forward with the house closing, so waiting to see what happens with all of that fun stuff. So fingers crossed that things go well for the next month or so, because it takes forever to get through this part. All right, and without further ado, here are our other guests for the evening, Mr. Steve Long and Miss Lily Dane. Good evening, lady and gent. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So, Steve, you've been on hiatus for a while. I know you went over and played on the K98X side of things for a while. We're doing your music show about, I guess.
That too.
Huh? You're still doing that too? Okay. Yeah. Cool. I didn't know. I know that David started doing both. I didn't know you were still doing both as well. But anyway, so I know you were doing the show originally. Liberty Unfiltered is a solo show. What gave you the idea to bring on a co-host?
Well, I've actually been looking for a co-host for a really long time. And if you might remember, I don't remember how long ago it was, but I had some people trying out. So, like, I did a show with somebody, and nobody really worked out. But I thought... I had been talking to Lily via Twitter and Facebook, and we have found that our philosophies were very similar. And I thought, hey, why don't I ask her if she wants to do this? And so she tried it out, and it's going great, I think.
Well, it definitely seems like, I'm just going to say, it definitely seems like it's brought a new dynamic to the show. I've noticed since you've come back with the co-host, your numbers seem like they've improved quite a bit. I don't know if that's because the station's grown a lot in your absence, so I think all of our numbers have gone up, but I think maybe having someone else as a sounding board to kind of throw things back and forth with seems like it helps too. It's one of the reasons why I started doing this on Mondays. I've usually opened it up to the other hosts to come hang out because it gives you guys some extra exposure. And it usually makes my life a little easier because I'm not just sitting here ranting and raving for an hour, which I do already 5 days a week. So,
yeah, the show's definitely a lot more fun to do. But as far as numbers, I think it's all Lily.
Oh no, can't be. I'm not taking credit for that.
All right, so I guess one of the things that, we may have some folks that may not know of the intrinsic differences between libertarianism and conservatism. You and I have these discussions a lot, so I'm pretty familiar with some of the major differences. But just in case we have some folks that have never really paid attention to the differences between the two before, why don't you guys go ahead and give a brief outline of what it is exactly that you believe and how you think things should run, and feel free to take turns or whatever you want to do.
You want to go ahead and start off, Lily?
I knew you were going to say that. Well, libertarians have a lot in common with conservatives, obviously. So we're for gun rights, constitutional rights, small government. Actually, some of us are more for no government, but I might let Steve elaborate on that.
Yeah, there's actually even some differences within libertarians. Some libertarians would call themselves minarchist, which are the types that are very limited government, basic role of government only, basic jobs that they have to do, whereas others would be referred to as anarchists that don't want any government at all, and essentially have no trust in the government, and would rather see a voluntary society in all walks of life.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, you guys, the only time you guys lose me really for a lot of it is the whole anarchy thing. I don't know how that could possibly work.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because on next week's show, we are actually going to talk about that very topic.
There was a reason I brought it up. It's called a sneak peek, sir.
Yeah. We are, now you made me lose my train of thought. We're going to try to dispel some, I guess you can say, myths about what anarchy is. We're going to try to explain to people what anarchy isn't, because there is a lot of confusion as to what it actually means. And then we're going to discuss why we think that type of society can work. One of the things we're doing is we want people to email us their questions about anarchy, whatever they want to know. That email address is libertyunfiltered@gmail.com, and we're going to spend a little bit of time answering those emails.
I was going to say, this show's going to go out to about 5-6 different affiliates, so you might as well get that email out, because you may get some folks that don't normally tune in that listen and have some questions of their own. Speaking of questions, so far, Jared, do you have anything that you have questions about? Because I have one if you don't.
No.
Okay, cool.
Hit it. Go ahead.
Just wanted to double check. All right, so Steve, one of the things that you and I argue about a lot, and I wouldn't necessarily say argue. I mean, it's not like we've gone Chris Christie, Rand Paul or anything. But, the whole open borders thing, for maybe some folks that are interested in that but don't understand it, how do you guys as libertarians feel like the whole border situation should be done? Because you guys throw around open borders a lot. But what exactly does that mean in your mind?
Well, the first thing I'm going to point out is that not all libertarians, and I've only just found this out in the last year or so, not all libertarians actually support open borders. That being said, I do. But Lily, do you want to kind of take some time? And you've been kind of quiet.
Sure. Yeah, I'm for open borders also. I wasn't always. It took a lot of research and hearing arguments on both sides for me to get to this point. But for me, the fundamental principle of this is people, to me, have the natural right to migrate, to live wherever they'd like. It seems to me that the borders that we've imposed are arbitrary. And, I also know there are a lot of benefits to having immigrants come in. The people who founded this country were immigrants. My ancestors were immigrants, some legal, some not.
Well, I think everybody, if you really look at our family tree, at least in this country, you're going to find that most of us were immigrants. I think my biggest thing when I start trying to look at the open border situation, I honestly think a lot of what our immigration laws began to form out of was there's no nice way to put this, but the terrible things that happened to the indigenous population. I think that's one of the reasons why some of the rules that we follow are in place, was to make sure that we didn't have a mass influx of people that were suddenly deciding that they had more right to be here than the folks that were already here. And I think it was one way to try to make sure that something like that didn't never happen again. And I have to tell you, I mean, just from my little perspective of it, to me, a lot of our immigration laws make sense. I don't like the fact that a lot of them are still pretty archaic. I think we could be using much better technology to make immigration a lot less expensive than it is and a lot easier. But I don't necessarily know if open borders is the way to go, only because at this point, I don't know. To me, that whole concept just it never really has made sense. I'm not saying that I don't think that anybody else is entitled to have that opinion. I've done the research myself, and to me, I can't find the rationale for it. I know it works well in other smaller countries, but I can't find a way to make it work well here. Maybe that's just, I'm old, so, I could just be kind of stuck in my ways. You never know. Hell, I'm a grandpa now, so I get that pointed out a lot.
Yeah, I'm getting old too, and this is interesting to listen to. And, I don't believe in open borders, but I try to keep an open mind to just about everything. So this is I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of this conversation.
Well, another way to look at it is the concept of freedom. And if you want freedom for one particular group, but not another particular group, it seems like not you specifically, but one's idea of freedom is the common phrase that I hear a lot is liberty for me, but not for thee. So to tell somebody that they can't cross an imaginary line is to deny that person that freedom.
But that's just it. We're not telling anybody they can't cross an imaginary line. We're telling them that if you want to come here and actually remain here permanently, there are steps that you need to take. And I agree that those steps need to be reviewed, but I don't think they need to be gotten rid of as a whole.
And, the imaginary line, to that point, if we didn't have an imaginary line, if we had an actual border, that would change the conversation a bit. Because our border, we've seen the holes in the fence. The animals migrate in several places, and that is an imaginary line. Our border is imaginary, so it makes the issue that much more difficult.
Well, I think when Steve refers to an imaginary line, I think he's basically saying all borders, because if you look at an actual map that doesn't have a border line, like a topographical map, there's no difference as far as the actual topography from one country to the next. So I think when he's mentioning imaginary lines, I think he's talking about the lines that everybody draws. And I don't know. To me, again, my biggest issue that I have with all of it is in one point, Jared's right. We don't really have a border to the south anymore. And we have all kinds of people that are coming across that border, and we don't have any idea what their intentions are. And that's another thing that terrifies me with the open borders. I think I would be more willing to have the open border conversation if we could fix all of the other things that are wrong, as far as folks just being able to come in from another country and all of a sudden they get in-state tuition, free health care, a better house than I've got. And I'm having to work my tail off to get the one that I'm about to get, and some of these folks still live in a better house than I do. That's my problem.
Regarding them qualifying for health care, did you read that somewhere, or what do you base that on?
I base that on the fact that in most of the hospitals here in Oklahoma, I'm not sure where you are, there are actually basic signs that say, for the most part, if you come in and you report an injury or an illness in an emergency room, you do not have the ability to be refused treatment, and those are usually in at least 2, sometimes even 3 different languages. So they can basically just walk into a hospital, get treatment, say they're going to make a payment later, and then we're all stuck with the bill at another time. And
from what I understand, public hospitals have to do that, not private. I could be wrong, but I remember hearing that before. But when it comes to Obamacare and other benefits, it's a common belief that immigrants are qualifying for these things. And from what I've read, that's actually not true. You have to have a Social Security number, first of all, to be able to apply for Obamacare. Now, I have huge problems with Obamacare, but that's a whole nother story. But they're also paying into Social Security. They're bolstering it. They've, over the last few years, put $100 billion into Social Security. If it weren't for them, Social Security Administration says that it would be broke by 2037. So there are pros and cons, I think. It's probably hard to really figure out the stats for both sides.
Well, yeah, but
it's
I mean,
definitely a complicated issue.
As far as back to your point about the public hospitals and the private hospitals, there really aren't very many private hospitals that I know of, at least in Oklahoma. So I think they all are kind of basically governed by the same set of rules. I mean, most of them are considered public hospitals, at least that I know of. I mean, I haven't had to go to the hospital in a while, but I do know that even as early as about a year ago, when my son had to have an x-ray, we wound up taking him to the hospital that was right up the street. And you can actually read the sign it was both English and Spanish. If you have signed in to be treated, no one has the right to refuse you service, regardless of your ability to pay. And it says it in both English and Spanish. And I know because I can't speak Spanish very well, but I can read it and understand it really well. So, because I had 4 years in college, I just never really put it to much use. Except for when I was in private security.
I learned it in college and haven't put it to use. So I've, like they say, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Well, I had pretty good command of it for a while.
Point out something that was mentioned here in the chat room, and it's actually spot on here. All of these problems that we're talking about are problems with the government, not with open borders.
Well, no, and that's kind of the point that I was saying. If the government was fixed, I don't think I would have nearly the problem I do with open borders. I don't think this country is ready for open borders because everything in our system is broken. If we didn't have the problems that we have, I don't think I would have nearly the problem with it. But this goes back to something that I say over and over again almost every show, and it seems like it fits again. The problem is, no matter how often we have these conversations and then how much we talk about everything that's broken, the government actually doesn't want any of it to be fixed, because if it was fixed, we wouldn't need them anymore, and they know it. And they're
something about that, Lily.
I absolutely agree with that. It's true. I believe that Rand said that last week in our show that they want us to be dependent on them.
Sorry, Steve, you kind of cut out there. What were you saying?
I was saying, didn't you and I say something about that on our show last night?
Yeah, I think that came up again last night, that they want us to be dependent on them, and we feel they're becoming obsolete, so they're grasping onto whatever kind of control they can implement.
See, the thing, well, honestly, to a point, you may be right. I think maybe the government, because with technology and everything, I think they honestly may be getting to the point where at least the government, as large as it is, I wouldn't necessarily say obsolete, but maybe the phase in between obsolescent. But the thing with that is government has become this ginormous monster that does nothing but continue to try to feed itself. And at some point, unless we can find a way to get it to feed upon itself, eventually it's going to eat us instead. Because it's just going to continue eating everything that it can find, and basically it's going to get more of our money, more control of our lives, and ultimately we're going to be the ones that pay the price. That's one of the reasons why, no matter how many times guys like Dave and Bryce try to point out how much they love Bernie Sanders, even talking about trying to even imagine the idea of pulling the lever for a socialist, even if it is a democratic socialist, my skin literally it literally crawls. I'm not even playing. Because to me, that's just terrifying, because that's admitting that you need the government to take care of you. And I don't want that. I don't need the government to take care of me. I need the government to get the hell out of my way.
To that point.
Can I jump back to something real quick?
Sure.
Back to when we were talking about healthcare, I just wanted to add, I live in a sanctuary city near the border, Phoenix, Arizona, and healthcare is accessible to illegal immigrants through clinics, but they do not need a social security number to get on certain health plans. It's not Obamacare. They have... in public hospitals, we do have some private hospitals, and I do not know if they can get services there. And from my own experience, there was a time about 6 or 7 years ago, I had no insurance for my children, and my daughter desperately needed help. I took her to the ER without insurance. They didn't require a social security number, and she got care in the ER, but she could not get the surgery that she needed. So it's possible that illegal immigrants can get emergency services, but to get with Obamacare, they would get surgery, and maybe they do need a Social Security number for that. So there is misconception, I believe, among the public that they can just get health care and get whatever they want. But there are cases where maybe at sanctuary cities, at least in my city, there is health plans that are a little bit under the radar that I do get taxpayer money put into it that help them. I do know that because I had to research it for myself while I didn't have insurance for my kids. And one more thing about like I said, I'm old. My short-term memory just fizzled out. I had another point on something someone mentioned, so I'm done with that point. I just wanted to throw that in there.
So I don't know if maybe this has something to do with the title of the show, but it seems like everybody's train of thought keeps derailing on off the rails. Just saying.
Terrible.
All right.
At least it's not just one of us.
So apparently we have riled up Dave. I don't know if you've noticed or not, Steve. He's a little. He seems a little riled.
He's a fan of Bernie.
I wonder if that means he's feeling the burn.
I don't think he's a fan of me very much.
Nobody's saying, Dave. Nobody
followed. You know, someone doesn't like what you're tweeting, but I can be kind of opinionated and kind of an asshole sometimes.
Dave, nobody's saying Sanders is the boogeyman. First of all, he's even uglier than the boogeyman. Oh wait, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. All right, so anyway, I think I'm done picking on Dave for a minute. I think I've made him mad enough that he's not even responding anymore. Okay, so I don't know. I think you're right, Jared. I think some of it may be a common misconception because I think a lot of folks, when they read those signs, they think that the hospital is going to pick up all the entire tab, and I do know for a fact they won't because I've seen it too. But again, I think part of what has me angry about the whole situation is what about all the people that are doing it the right way? And we keep making excuses for all of the people that are doing it the wrong way. I mean, look, if we really want to talk about the open border situation, we are honestly going to have to fix everything else that's broken. The only way to do that is to get rid of all these idiots that are in D.C., pretty much down to a single one of them, because we just had the closest thing to a landslide this country's seen in a long time, and the Republicans that are in power now are doing the same things the Democrats that they just said they wanted to get out of.
Everybody in D.C. Absolutely.
I'm sorry, what?
The District of Criminals.
Yeah. Yep.
As we call it.
It's accurate. We need to purge the establishment, both parties, and then possibly both parties could work together more. It's the establishment wing of both parties Boehner is a bootlicker of Obama. We put the Republicans in
I'm not
power,
so sure he's licking the boot.
Nothing that we wanted. Now, I'm sure that some of the stuff that I would want, we differ on the border issue, but there's a Democrat establishment, and I wish we could get rid of both.
On the note of insurance and open borders, imagine if we had a truly free market for health insurance. No government involvement whatsoever, and people had to pay for plans and were responsible for their own health care. The costs would go down for everyone, of course, because I'm an example of this. Last year, I cut myself on a glass vase because I was clumsy, and I am a contractor, so I'm not insured. So I had to go to the emergency room, and they cut a significant amount of my bill down because I'm uninsured. And my sister, who's insured, was a little upset about that. She's like, well, wait a minute. If that were me being insured, my bill would probably be 4 times what yours was. That's not fair. And I said, that right there is the example of why we should cut out that middleman, and let people either pay directly for health care or, have a free market for insurance coverage. So that would be one, example of us saying government's part of the problem. They're right.
I agree 100%.
Well, yeah, that is completely right. And we'll actually probably continue this discussion here in just a second when we actually get back. But it is about time for us to take the bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back here in just a couple of minutes, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to America Off the Rails with special guests Lily Dane, Steve Long from Liberty Unfiltered, and, of course, my resident Monday co-host, Jared from Red Nation Rising Radio. We'll be back with you here in just a couple of minutes.
Red Nation Rising brings you Town Hall Radio.
From a single tweet to 3 million a month, our community is a force to be reckoned with on social media.
So don't miss our show, Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern on K98 Talk.
Our chat room is our co-host, and you ask the question.
Join us and be heard.
So get ready to sound off on Red Nation Rising Radio. No one else is going to do it for you.
There's a wild, wild whisper blowing in the wind, calling out my name like a long lost friend.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
We will never fully understand what we've asked of our military service members, of their families or their children, asking them to deploy, patrol, stay on watch, on point, asking them to put themselves in harm's way, to endure it all. But we do understand that it's our turn, our duty, to bring them all the way home, to keep them secure, to have their backs for the rest of their lives. Wounded Warrior Project long-term support programs do whatever it takes to help our most severely ill or injured veterans live independently, at no cost, for life, so that they might stand at ease. Find out how you can help at findwwp.org.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of Libertarians conservatism.
Where no one is safe, no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
anyway.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Cause we got a pen and telephone to bypass all your laws. Political correctness will replace the Bill of Rights. Support religious freedom, bless your prayer.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. This is America Off the Rails. We're down to the bottom half of the show. And, Jared, you did mention something that I was rather intrigued with during the break while we were having our behind-the-scenes discussion. If you want, you can go ahead and feel free and kind of mention that now. I think it might spur a pretty good conversation for the last few minutes we got left.
Yeah, well, I was just mentioning that the country is in such rough shape. I mean, politically, polar opposites, and we have conservatives and libertarians have a lot in common, with some extremely important issues, and if there could be middle ground on some issues like the social issues that are important to both parties, but there could be compromise. I mean, everything is moving to the left anyway, so if conservatives could compromise on some positions, and I think that would spark some unification. And if conservatives and libertarians work together as much as they work separately, we could purge some of the garbage, and I'm calling some of them garbage. Get them the heck out of D.C., all of the establishment on both sides, and then actually accomplish something that's going to be change the country. And I mean, $18 trillion of debt isn't just going to go down. That can destroy a country. It can put us completely under. That was it, basically.
Well, no, and I think they're great points, because this is one of the things that I've been saying, and I will go so far as to say that for the most part, it doesn't even pertain to just conservatives and libertarians. If we as Americans, there are about 7 issues that we cannot seem to find a way to agree on. If we could put those 7 issues aside and focus on the things that we actually agree on, which is that we want to be able to go about our daily lives, do the things that we need to do to be able to not only survive but also thrive, and have the government basically do the bare minimum of what it needs to do, except for our resident anarchists who think there shouldn't be any government at all. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But anyway, so if we could push those 7 things aside, just those 7, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things like abortion. I'm talking about even so far as some of the immigration problem. I think we need to tackle the immigration problem much differently than we are right now. We have technology available today that would make immigration so much easier, so much less expensive, and we're not doing anything about it. But again, we have these 7 hot button issues that everybody talks about in the media, whether it's right of center media, left of center media, or even some of the stuff that claims to be center of mass media. The simple fact of the matter is they want us discussing those 7 things that they know we're never going to agree on. For one very important reason when it comes to the media, because they know that's what sells, and the only thing they're concerned about is their ad revenue. But the more sinister thing that I think is honestly going on behind the scenes is most of the folks in the media, in one way or another, seem like they're in bed with whatever respective side they support. Case in point, this whole thing with Fox basically just completely derailing Trump the other night. I don't like Trump, but I don't like some of the way they treated him either. I don't think he deserves to be number 1 in the polls. I think the only reason he is because he's figured out how to treat an election cycle like a reality TV show, and it's getting everybody's attention. But again, because all we do is fight over these same 7 issues over and over and over again, nothing ever changes. And until we can realize that if we could put those things aside, we have more in common with every single one of us, whether we're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Conservative, it doesn't matter. We have more in common with regular everyday folks than we're ever going to have with these nozzles in D.C. And if we can't figure that out, we're running out of time. It really is just about that simple.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I try to tell people. I say, you're picking sides, but it ultimately doesn't matter because there's so much money in politics now that, and Trump admitted that, right off the bat in the debate, that he's bought business favors from politicians, and he gave money to everybody on the stage, I guess, except for Rubio, but who cheated, I think. But, he admitted it flat out. Yeah, you're a businessman with a lot of money. You can buy influence. And that's the first thing that needs to change, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't understand how it is that all of our politicians have basically gotten to the point where they're for sale. And they don't even hide it anymore. I mean, they might as well just start wearing NASCAR sponsor jackets.
Right.
Because at least then we know who they're in bed with.
Right. There was that study that came out of Penn State recently that said, 90% of what Congress decides is the opposite of what the people want. They don't care.
Wow. I think R&R Arizona is having a little bit of fun with Dave in the chat room.
Oh, no.
All right. So But yeah, I mean, but that's been my thing all along. That's actually what started all of this, and it's all morphed into this crazy thing that we now call K98 Talk, because I don't know how any of the rest of you got involved in this, but this all started as a Facebook page that I started. It was originally a Right of Center Facebook page called My Two Cents. I ran it for about 3 months, got completely bored, brought Mr. Dave Brown on board, and basically he became the left of center voice for the page, and then it originally morphed into a couple of different iterations, and it did finally land on Common Ground, which eventually became a radio show of its own, which is the one that actually started everything, which was a show called Finding Common Ground, which is now the one that Bryce and I usually do. And it started becoming a radio show because there were times when I was reading through the stories and typing up articles and everything else that I just wanted to take my keyboard and just bash it into a million pieces. I was like, there has to be a way that I can do this that doesn't make me want to destroy my computer every other day. And that's where the idea of the radio show came from.
I see. I know that feeling about wanting to smash the keyboard.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it was you or Dave or both of you that talked me into doing this.
I think it was a little of both. Because you were like, yeah, I don't know. And then you started being a moderator on the original page. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, we're going to do this radio thing. And you're like, yeah, maybe I'll try it too.
Snartly on your Finding Common Ground show.
Yeah, well, there is that too. But yeah, I mean, that's how all of this started, because I kept looking at all the different arguments. And if you look at everything, I mean, I will have to admit, it's changed a lot over the last 7 years. But this has been something that we've been doing now for, good Lord, 4, 5 years? Has it really been that long? But anyway.
I believe that my show is a little over 2 years old now.
But yeah, I mean, you count the Facebook pages and everything. We've been doing this now almost 5 years. But, you know, it's morphed a little bit over the last 7 years. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we've had a president who's more of a cheerleader for problems than he is somebody actually trying to fix them. And that concerns me as well. But still, even if you count all the racial tension and everything else, if we could get past things like abortion and just say, look, it's here. We may not all agree with it, but we can't hold everybody to the same exact standard that we may want to hold ourselves to. So we need to just let that one go, because if we don't, we're never going to get anywhere. As far as even completely doing away with the tax code, I don't think that's ever, taxes in general. I think that's something else that we probably need to, at least for the short term, put to bed. I think we need to focus more on doing some sort of a fair tax that is income-based, because you could actually give folks that are below a certain income level a card they swipe when they go to the store that alleviates them from paying anything. But that way, that is, of course, if their income is verifiable. Because the biggest thing that we have right now, if we really stopped and thought about it, we have all of these people that are working for cash that are not paying anything into the system, and they do it on purpose. So if we can actually get it to be a consumption-based tax, anybody that makes below a certain amount of income that can prove that that's the income that they make, then they don't have to pay anything. But if you're out panhandling on a street corner or selling crack, then you're going to have to pay your taxes.
Interesting you bring that up, because last night on the show, me and Lily were talking about taxes. You remember that conversation?
Yeah, we were talking about how politicians make all these things illegal that they find immoral, like selling drugs or prostitution. But then they complain that those people are dealing in cash and not paying taxes. Well, they can't have it both ways. You know, those things are going to operate on a black market if they're illegal.
And then, we made a very clear point that we don't like taxes of any sort, but if we absolutely have to have taxes, consumption tax would be probably the best way to go.
Well, I mean, to me, it just makes more sense, because then you can't say it's not fair. Because if you're making $1 million and you're spending $100,000 a day and you're getting taxed on the amount of money that you're spending, then that's fair. If you make
and in a system like that, you only pay taxes when you want to.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that too. I mean, you don't have to buy anything.
Right.
I don't know how you would survive without buying anything, unless you're just going to go pitch a tent in the country and figure out a way to get some seeds for food, but I guess you could figure it out.
Yes, there's some way to do it.
That makes me think of agorism, where there are communities of anarchists who trade. So they have farms, they have homesteads, they do a lot of trading. They avoid, contributing anything to the system as much as possible.
No, and honestly, that's becoming more common, not even in like the agriculture side of things. I actually, about a year ago, I guess, noticed a show where there's a group of folks that basically do nothing but barter. They're trying to get the things that they want. And they go through a lot to get it done, but a lot of times by the time they're done, they get a lot of cool stuff, and they basically just worked a bunch of trades to get there. So I think in some way, the fact that our economy is as broken as it is, I think people are getting creative and finding ways around it. Because I actually saw a guy that by the time he was done had traded his way into a $250,000 home because somebody wanted an RV instead. So he went around and kept trading a bunch of different stuff, and finally got to the point where he got the RV that the guy had wanted. He drove it up there, and the guy took the keys, and the guy took the keys of the house, and they were good. I'm like, damn. I wish I had that kind of time.
That's a great example of anarchy, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Working without government. I'm sure they had taxes to pay in that transaction, but...
I think Dave's trying to get to me again. He's like, you said pitch a tent. I'm like, yeah, whatever. All right, so we are down to about 10 minutes. Why don't you guys go ahead and maybe give a little bit of a sneak peek of anything you've got coming up next couple of shows. Maybe let folks know where they can find you, any blogs or anything that you may contribute for, all that fun stuff, if anything is applicable.
Well, we're Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern. Right here on K98 Talk, so you can get to us same way you got to this show. Well, I suppose some people. There's a blog that is updated sometimes. It's libertyunfiltered.com. There is the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Liberty Unfiltered. And then the Twitter page, if you're into that sort of thing, it's, God, what did I change it to?
I knew that was going to trip you up.
See, this is why I told you to quit messing with it.
It's Liberty, the number 4, the letter U, radio. Was that a cricket?
It kind of sounded like one, but I don't know where it came from.
Then if if you want to talk to us, the hosts, on Twitter, I'm at Otter272, and Lily, you can.
I'm Lily Dane 1, the number 1.
The number 1, yeah.
Right.
So next week we're going to be talking about, like we mentioned earlier in the show, we're going to try to dispel some myths about anarchy, what it is, what it isn't, and then, of course, why we think it can work. And you got anything else you want to add to that?
No, I think you summed it up really well.
Yeah, just for the record, I think anarchy scares me almost as much as socialism. I'm just saying. I know that's gonna
change your mind.
But again, maybe it's more to do with the fact that
anarchy, there's no government to take away your taxes.
Yeah, but with anarchy, there's no government to do the few things that the government actually should probably be doing. Although I can't really think of any of those at the moment, so who knows? Maybe I will change my mind by Sunday.
It's the show next week.
All right.
Hurt you. Bring you to the dark side.
You never know. I actually used to be a lot more conservative than I am now. As I get older, I do seem like I'm kind of sliding a little more toward the libertarian side of things, which is one of the things that annoys Steve, because I started calling myself a conservatarian. He's like, "What the hell is that?" I'm like, "It's kind of it's a conservative with libertarian leanings." He's like, "That's crap."
Pick a title.
But that's just Steve. He's just blunt. He's kind of blunt. And how is it they used to describe you over at not war, but Vigilant Liberty Radio. They still have your show over there, by the way, in case you didn't know. It's still posted. I see it every time. I see it every time I go to grab Liz's show. You might want to talk to them and see if they want to at least rerun the replays. I'm sure they probably will.
I think it was Internet's Political Pariah.
Something like that. It was either Internet's Political I think it was started out with Internet's Political Pariah, Resident Anarchist, and Comic Book Boy or something. I thought that was kind of weird. Anyway. All right, so we are coming down to the end of the show. Hey, Jared, why don't you go ahead and let folks know a little bit about what you've got going on this coming Thursday?
Yeah, rebootliberty.com, and there's a radio page there to listen. And Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, we've got author Kelvin Smythe. He wrote a book called The End of Prejudice. And tune in. Hop in the chat room at k98talk.com or .org or rebootingliberty.com/radio. We've got a lot of stuff on rebootingliberty.com. Red Nation Rising doesn't have the radio capability on their website, so that's why we're sending over to Rebooting Liberty. So hope to see you. And after us is Game On with JD and Stacy. Tune in for that too.
All right, so that's going to about do it for tonight. I just want to give a quick shout-out to the shows that are coming on after us. Of course, here in just a minute, you'll hear a rebroadcast of the Liz Harrison radio show that kicked off at 5 right before we went live. And then tonight, you will hear at 8 Central, 9 Eastern, the, good Lord, I always forget the name of their show, Real Serious Nonsense Show with Angie and Paul. And then, of course, at 10, 9 Central, you will hear the Stafford Voice, hosted by Daniel Stafford. Of course, I am your resident 5-day-a-week guy, usually here Monday through Friday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. Heard on several different affiliates, and also the programming director at K98 Talk. So like it or hate it, you can email me at rick@k98talk.org. Questions, comments, concerns, you can reach me at _R_OKC. You can send a friend request to my professional page, which is Rowdy Ricky Robinson on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Rowdy Ricky Robinson. If you don't already have my personal page, no, you probably won't get an invite. You can ask, but I'm not telling you where it is, because, yeah, that's just how I roll. All right, so that is basically going to do it for the show tonight. Excuse me? What'd you say?
I said you roll.
Well, usually I wobble, but, you know, I used to roll. But that's a topic for another show, sir. All right, so it's been great having everybody with us. It's actually been a blast. We should probably try to do one of these group shows a little more often, especially on a Monday, because Mondays at the day job suck, and having a bunch of folks to talk to makes the hour go by a lot faster. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
All right, well, we can definitely at least knock around the idea of maybe making this more of a semi-regular kind of thing. You guys don't all have to do it every week or anything, but we can definitely talk about it. All right, well, at this point, it is about time for us to go ahead and get out of here. I want to give a big thanks again to the hosts of Liberty Unfiltered, Steve Long and Lily Dane, and, of course, my resident usual Monday guy, Jared from Red Nation Rising Radio. I will be back with you live tomorrow night right here on America Off the Rails. Available several places, enough that I'm actually going to build a website so I can tell everybody where we're at. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
Screw you guys. I'm going home. Later.
Game over, man. It's game over.
In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Joe had huge problems with the IRS.
I knew it was coming. I hadn't filed taxes since 1990.
All the IRS letters coming in added up to a nightmare.
It got up to like $68,000. My heart started beating fast. It's like, there's no way, man. I mean, I ain't going to be able to do this.
Then they stopped his paycheck.
So that's when I started making phone calls and found U.S. Tax Shield.
U.S. Tax Shield went to work immediately.
They just took the bull by the horns. What blew my mind is he called the IRS right then and there.
So why is U.S. Tax Shield A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau? Joe knows.
They saved me a ridiculous amount of money.
If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or state, choose the company Joe chose, U.S. Tax Shield.
It was the best decision I made. U.S. Tax Shield is the way to go. Life is good. Thank you, Lord.
Call 800-471-3287.
U.S. Tax Shield. Boo-rah. Yes.
800-471-3287. 800-471-3287.